Most people think the Honda CB77 is just a retro comeback story. I don't see it that way. If Honda actually brings a 2026 CB77 into the modern lineup, it won't just be nostalgia. It'll be a statement about what middleweight motorcycles are supposed to feel like again. When I look at the original CB77 Superhawk from the 1960s, what stands out isn't just the chrome or the history, it's how light and simple it was. Around 305cc, high revving for its time, and built to be ridden hard without drama. That spirit matters more than the badge. Now imagine a 2026 version. I compared it in my head to bikes like the CB300R and even the Royal Enfield 350 class. What surprised me was how different the CB77 could feel if Honda leans into refinement instead of just affordability. Most people assume it would just be another beginner bike. I don't think that's the right angle. If Honda positions the CB77 as a premium small displacement standard with quality suspension, clean fueling, and real metal finishes instead of plastic pretending to be metal, it could attract older riders who want something lighter but not cheap feeling. And that's the first big takeaway. Lightweight doesn't mean entry level. I've noticed a shift lately. A lot of experienced riders are downsizing, not because they have to, but because they're tired of wrestling 500 plus pound machines in traffic. A modern CB77 at, say, under 370 pounds with a smooth twin cylinder engine could hit a sweet spot that most brands are ignoring. But here's where I get skeptical. Honda sometimes plays it too safe. If they detune the engine too much or give it basic suspension just to protect other models in the lineup, the CB77 could lose its identity. The original wasn't famous for being average, it had personality. Most people miss this. Character doesn't come from horsepower numbers, it comes from how an engine delivers power. If Honda gives the 2026 CB77 a lively top end, something that encourages you to rev it out instead of short shifting at 6,000 RPM, that would instantly separate it from commuter-focused bikes. I'd rather have 40 honest, exciting horsepower than 45 dull ones. And let's talk design. If they go full retro with spoked wheels, twin shocks, and a classic tank shape, it could look incredible. But personally, I'd love to see a smart blend. Maybe traditional lines, but with upside-down forks and subtle LED lighting. Modern performance hiding inside vintage proportions. Too much retro can feel like cosplay. Too modern and you lose the CB77 name's meaning. There's also a common misconception that a bike like this would only appeal to older riders chasing memories. I disagree. Younger riders are actually drawn to authenticity. I've compared how people react to flashy sport bikes versus clean, simple standards. The standards get more real-world attention. A well-executed CB77 could become that cool without trying bike. Another thing I keep thinking about is pricing. If Honda prices it just slightly above entry-level singles, but clearly below middleweight twins, it creates its own lane, not a beginner compromise, not a performance monster, just a well-balanced everyday motorcycle. And balance is something we don't talk about enough. I've ridden powerful bikes that were impressive but exhausting. I've ridden small bikes that were practical but forgettable. The magic happens when a bike feels alive at legal speeds. That's where the CB77 has potential. Here's a practical insight most buyers overlook: comfort geometry. If Honda gives the 2026 CB77 a neutral riding position with slightly rear-set pegs and a flat handlebar, it could handle commuting, weekend rides, and even light canyon carving without modification. That versatility is more valuable than a spec sheet brag. What would really surprise me, though, is if Honda tunes the exhaust note properly. Small twins often sound thin, but with the right firing order and exhaust design, they can sound crisp and mechanical in a satisfying way. Sound matters. It shapes how fast a bike feels. I also wonder how much tech Honda would include. Traction control? Maybe basic. Ride modes? Probably unnecessary. I'd rather see money spent on suspension quality and braking feel instead of extra buttons. Simplicity can actually be a premium feature if it's intentional.
And let's not ignore the emotional side. The CB77 name carries weight. It represents a time when Honda was proving itself globally. If the 2026 model captures even a piece of that confident simplicity, it won't need to shout for attention. I noticed something when comparing modern retro bikes. The ones that succeed aren't the most powerful, they're the most cohesive. Every part feels like it belongs. If Honda gets that right, the CB77 could quietly become one of the most satisfying motorcycles in its class. Not because it's the fastest, not because it's the cheapest, but because it feels right every time you throw a leg over it. And honestly, in a market obsessed with bigger screens and higher numbers, a thoughtfully built Honda CB77 might be exactly the reset button riders didn't realize they needed.